I was looking at a couple of stats before we came on air this evening. Looking at rents when you became Taoiseach back in 2020, the average monthly rent in this country was around 1,400. Today, it's almost 1,700. House prices in June 2020, when you became Taoiseach, 254,000. Today, 311,000, just 2.5 years later. Homeless figures, Taoiseach, in June 2020. 8,699 today, 2.5 years into your tenure, 10 days out from you finishing, 11,397. You might be reaching targets, but it's not having the impact it needs to have.
Well, again, it is having an impact. Of course it's having an impact when you house people, more people this year than you did last year and than you did the year before. But the bottom line is, we have, and again, coming in, we're facing a situation where we had lower levels of house building in previous years. It takes time to get it up to scale.
Whose fault is that?
I'm not going to blame. I'm just making the point. For this government, it's identified housing as a key priority. We brought in the Housing for All strategy over a year ago. We've put unprecedented funding, over 4 billion per annum available, and that's guaranteed and certain over the next number of years. So the key issue is delivery of housing, and it's all about supply. Prices will not stabilise until we get higher supply into the market, and that's going to take some time to get that necessary level of supply, as we have discussed. Now, we have brought in rent credits to try and help people who are renting, and we did that in this year's budget to try and alleviate pressure on those in the rental sector.
And yet we had the CSO Cost of Living Survey this week, which showed that almost 50% of renters in this country are considering and would consider emigration because of the cost of living. Well, again, does that not disappoint you hugely?
Well, I think the cost of living is a huge issue for people, although there's more people coming into the country than leaving the country. We've had net inward migration into this country this year, a significant net migration. And even between 18 and 24-year-olds, we've had a significant net migration into the country. There's more Irish nationals coming into the country than Irish people leaving the country.
So people aren't leaving. They might consider it and talk about it, but they're not actually doing it. Is that what you're saying?
This is Central Statistics Office data here now. We have to deal in the facts around the data. But of course, young people are leaving. And of course, young people are very, very annoyed in terms of housing. This is the biggest issue for young people, both the cost of housing in terms of rents and in terms of getting houses. So I don't want to, I just want to make the point that for young people, it's extremely frustrating that the challenges they have. That's why we've kept the Help to Buy scheme, which other parties would abolish. That's why we've brought in the First Home scheme, again, to try and help young people to have affordability and to be able to buy houses that they can afford. And this year was the best year yet. About 16,000 first-time home buyers this year, the highest since 2008. So there is impact in the policies. The issue is, of course, we have to do more, and we have to get more supply and more houses built and build them more quickly.
And you talk about frustration there, and we have seen protests around refugees coming into this country over the last couple of weeks, and I'm wondering if housing and the failure around housing, has that created a space which really fosters this opposition to refugees coming in?
I think there are broader issues afoot there. I think there are some people, not all now, some people are concerned with developments in their neighbourhoods and so forth. Others are ideologically opposed to bringing refugees from war-torn areas and opposed to the international protection process and scheme that we, as a country that's committed to the multilateral rules-based order, have signed up to a long time ago in terms of people seeking asylum, fleeing persecution or fleeing war. I think what's happening more broadly is, and this, by the way, is happening in every country in Europe, the world is a much more unsettled place. There are wars, more conflict, more famine, climate change. All of it is fueling migration into Europe, right across Europe and into Ireland as well. And that is a reality of the modern era. It's not going to change. So what we have to do is try and adjust and manage our economy, our society, to deal with these realities that are here. And also, from a European perspective then, to go to source and to do more in terms of the countries that are under pressure to make the quality of life in those countries better, so that people wouldn't be seeking to leave those countries coming into Europe.
But I'm just talking about, I suppose, the opposition here in Ireland. And we've seen the Mayor of Kerry, for example, John Francis Flynn, who is a Fianna Fáil councillor, member of your party. He's saying, look, there needs to be a cap on refugees. He is not a racist. He completely condemns the protests. But he said the biggest conversation on the street in Kerry at the moment is the growing tension between local people and refugees. Are you ignoring that unease?
Well, I've met a lot of people, many people who have welcomed Ukrainians into the country, into their community, and work with them. So I think we need to get the two perspectives on this now. I mean, I do look, there's pressures, there are huge challenges. This is unprecedented. There's a war in Europe.
You accept there is unease out there?
No, I think the first thing I accept is there's a war going on. And I, from a moral perspective, as the bombs rain down on cities all across Ukraine, I don't think we can say no to women and children who are fleeing Ukraine. We are part of the European Union. Every country in the European Union is stepping up to this challenge. I don't think we can just close the door and say we can't do any more. I do accept there are pressures on our system. I think 65 to 66,000 Ukrainians have come into the country. About 10,000 on international protection have come in addition to that. That's something we have never experienced in our history, and clearly is creating pressures. But that said, I think the majority of people do understand the rationale and the reasons behind it. And it is, you know, we understand the concerns that people have.
Okay.
But I think we should never lose sight of the fact that this is because of a very brutal war, which we witness on our screens every evening. Putin is trying to freeze people out of Ukraine now. He's murdering innocent civilians. He's causing enormous damage to infrastructure, energy, so that he's hoping to create a migration crisis. This is part of his war effort.